How you doing? It's thedruzhinacast, and it's Easter, and Tom and I have had a couple drinks in us.
I've had one.
One drink. A couple drink between the both of us.
Yeah.
So I'm Mike.
I'm Tom. What's up?
You could say it now, Rob. You're one of us.
Okay, I'm good. I'm cleared.
Yeah.
And I'm Rob.
Well, you're like, I mean, I was gonna make a big deal out of this, but you, Rob's official now. Rob's a part of this now. We figured, especially because a lot of the discussion on the thedruzhinacast is going to focus around Vassal, we've decided to bring Rob on as like a permanent fixture of the thedruzhinacast. So welcome. Anytime Rob's available and is up to doing it every other Sunday, he'll be here. And even after we're done focusing on Vassal stuff, I wouldn't mind if Rob stuck around as long as he wants to. So welcome, bud.
Thanks, man. Sounds good to me.
Just
Happy
remember
to
say
be
your
here.
name at the beginning, and I won't kick you out of the show.
Mhm.
But so last week we pretty much just looked at Vassal maps and like talked loosely about developmental stuff. We kind of just bounced around wherever the train of thought took us. But this Sunday it's pretty much more of the same. I mean, we do have a couple things we want to touch on. I think to start, we could probably make the little announcement about our Discord, perhaps. We are trying to clean up our Discord.
Mhm.
There's some. I don't want to say dead weight, but I'm trying to think of a better way to say it. There's just people in. There's people in there who are just kind of hanging out. And
Inactivity.
Like, at some point, they will probably be part of the game. But at this point, we're kind of looking for people to be a little more active and a little more involved and a little more focused because we are trying to build this thing and we need help. So pretty much if you're not helping, I don't know if we have a place for you in the Discord anymore. So we are going to be posting, I think, tomorrow. We've written up a little thing so that we can get people kind of light a fire under their butts. We're going to be pushing people to change their name on the Vassal Discord to their character name. If you don't have a character name, or if you don't have a backstory, and especially if you haven't filled out a character application yet, we're going to give you about a month to do that before we just kind of boot you off the server. If you're struggling with making that happen on your own, you can talk to any of us, or even Nick, who is Franz Pape in the Discord server. Any of us can sit down and talk to you and try to find a place for you in the known world that we have so far and try to develop at least the minimal base of a character for you and a name so that you can just exist a little more in a more involving way in the server so that while we're talking about this stuff, it'll mean something to you.
Well, not only that, really quick, let me just say it's not so much like we're bloodthirsty to chop anybody away, but it's more like it's just like friendly motivation. Like, hey, like let's all work together and get some things developed.
Trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
And it's like it's getting more and more just as like the things that we're starting to talk about as far as like hosting events and things we have to worry about and things we have to set up and get organized. It's getting more and more real. So we're trying to just be a little more professional about it, take it a little more seriously. Yeah. So that's just one of the steps we have to take. Getting that out of the way, how's your guys' Easter? Did you guys do anything?
Good.
I've done nothing.
Hey, that sounds like a good Easter to me.
That's the dream.
I was gonna say Amber works tonight, and we still live in the plague era, and my family wasn't doing anything, so I woke up earlier than usual, made some coffee, had some pancake, and then played video games. And now I'm here. So
wonderful.
I love the life you live.
It's a good one. Yeah. It's a good life.
I'm just full of food and I'm tired. I've been in the sun because like we get together, but when we do, I'm pretty stickly about it. So I'm like, we're only sitting outside. And if you're ever outside with us, we're wearing masks. Even though I got vaccinated, and I think my mom and my dad both have their first shots now, of whether it's the Pfizer or the Moderna, I don't know. But I got the J&J, so I'm one and done. I think after like another week and a half, it will have taken its effect or whatever, and I should be 79% good. But We're
It's
still
still not
pretty cautious
over.
about it.
Yeah, it's not over yet.
That's what I was telling my dad. 'Cause my dad was all like, "I think we're about to see the end of it," and I was
Come
like,
on,
"I don't know
son."
about that yet." But yeah, it's good. I'm glad everybody's having a good Keister Sunday. So where do you guys want to start? I don't really know exactly where we left off, or if there's really anything we need to like keep going with from last week, like specifically. I know there's things we want to talk about specifically this week, but is there anything you guys remember from the last episode that you'd like to continue on?
I don't know about the last episode.
Mm-mm.
I think we talked pretty thoroughly on the points we had, so we might be good there.
We can move on and start what I think we were planning to do.
So the two big things I think we kind of decided on talking about for this episode were just kind of basis for more Empire stuff and kind of trying to flesh out the at least idea of what we think the Empire is and what it's going to be, just because of the nature by which it's so involved in the history of the game world already that we kind of have to like set it up for people. And I wanted to personally kind of start hammering out more details on Ingvar's situation, and the more specifics of why he's in the position he is. So wherever you guys want to, the Great Erasmus has liked our stream.
Ooh, that's some
about
clout.
that guy, too.
That's some clout right there.
Sup,
We
Kyle?
gotta find the Great Erasmus's place in our world as well.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have that chat.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe first we should start with our general idea of, people keep hearing the word empire popping up, and it's like, what is going on? And like we've even had this concern amongst us, like where does it stand? Like, what are we doing? So I mean, we could go after that first, and then maybe go into the Ingvar stuff, because I mean, if it's connected,
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, as of now, we do have somebody that is. Should we also try to establish that? Do we want to stop calling it Empire? And do we want to start referring to people from that, to when we talk about that era, do we want to start referring to it as Lyonnais?
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction, but at the very least, I think it makes it less confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to create that division.
And even if we keep kind of messing up, maybe we should just kind of do the disclaimer so people understand that they're kind of interchangeable in a way. That Lyonnais is the area that occupies the space from which the Empire, when it existed, operated out of, and where it was based before it spread and was able to conquer most of what our known world is.
Mm-hmm.
But as it exists now, it's sort of like a pieced up group of, how would you say, like duchies and
yeah, like duchies and counties, or even in some cases maybe like city states. But yeah, it's certainly not one big cohesive thing anymore.
Yeah, I think too, to make it clear, like the quote unquote empire is a regime and an idea, whereas Lyonnais is the region, like the actual physical region, cultural region of what was there, but also it's the aftermath of that idea. So people that would live here wouldn't necessarily be like, yeah, empire ways. They have to pick up the pieces after this stuff just like everyone else. So there's going to be a, dynamic there that's specific to there, that if a player would want to be from there, obviously we've talked about they can come in and like help us develop what's happening after all of that past stuff happened. But like empire is like the regime and the mentality, and isn't necessarily linked to that geography anymore, if you think that's clear.
So it's an organization at this point. It's
not
necessarily like a governing body.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we have as far as? I see we have names for places here.
Mm-hmm.
and obviously Lyon is special because it's like a capital of sorts.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say like lore and just information about these specific separate areas. Like, do we have stuff on that? Like, is
Yeah, there's a little bit for each, because all of the cities that you see on the map right now have existed pretty much since when, like, we had the old drafts, like when I was snapping pictures in my notebook and putting it in the Discord. So these have been here for a while, and I've done a little bit on all of them. So Lyon is still kind of marked as like the capital, even though this landscape now would be all these different territories, and it's kind of ever changing. But Lyon is still significant because for anybody who wants to claim the legitimacy of, any sort of, bringing the empire back, imperial rule, whatever, no one there in Lyonnes would take you seriously if you didn't have that city. It's kind of like in Western Europe, if you were to say you're the Roman Empire and you don't have Rome, insert Holy Roman Empire jokes here, whatever. But having it gives you that legitimacy to say, like, we're the real deal. So that city is still significant even in this post-imperial, setting that it finds itself in now.
So if there is like a physical old empire presence, would you say that they are most likely operating in Lyon?
Yeah, for sure. The only thing that we haven't decided yet is, I guess, to the specifics, who those people are.
Right.
And we may still yet architect that ourselves, or if we have enthusiastic people who, want to take it on or whatever, that can change. But
yeah, it's very much it's this is the only part of the map that's existing in a weird space where, like, we both want people to come in and create their own kind of region, so that players are literally helping us make the game, and that with their own kind of ownership over where they're from and what they're about, that will just breed enthusiasm, like, naturally. But Lyonnais and the old empire kind of exists in this weird, like, I don't know, it's like this weird middle ground where, like, it's something we have created and we kind of need people to come fill that role, because we do need, like, even if people don't show up, like, oh, I'd love to play somebody from Lyonnais, and I'd love to play, like, somebody that's still trying to make this old empire, like, rise back up. We're gonna still need those people probably to exist in the game anyways. So it's kind of like, if people don't show up to play characters from this area, we're gonna have to make them ourselves. But
right,
that's why we want to put it out there too. Is like, if people would be interested in playing this kind of, like, I mean, I think they're mostly based off French.
Yeah. So if the idea of being a Frenchman is appealing to you, then this is the group. But you want me to just continue through the rest of the cities, or
yeah, just keep popping off on them, and we'll see what we get out of them.
Yeah. So kind of in the history of the empire, so to speak, it all starts in Lyon and then basically just works its way, like, southward. So Perion is supposed to be kind of almost like the brother state, essentially. It's like the one that in every, like, civil dispute or uprising, rebellion, like, they're the one that always kind of, like, stays loyal. And their significance is it's also kind of like the agricultural center of the whole country. So those two together makes for, like, a pretty strong pairing. Cardo is supposed to be like a big trade port, coastal city. I was thinking too, it's probably going to be the hub of trade for anything that occurs. What if one day we eventually come up with something to the west, then that would certainly be the point of contact for that. Verlion is supposed to be, again, the point of contact for, I don't know, I got zoom blocking this. Okay, you can't see it, but just south of that is Venois. So that's like our Italian city-state, like a little island down there. So that is a city that deals primarily with them, and in the history is a very contested piece of land. That's probably the city that changes hands the most amount of times. So again, that's a place where it could make sense to play like a mercantile character. But if you also wanted to be more heavily in like the military side, there's a lot of logic to having that as your background. Because even if it's not necessarily defending the city per se, I would see that as a really strong like mercenary hub. Moving up to Tremont and Troy, those are two cities that I made that in their position kind of being on the border to the east, they're kind of almost more like stronghold cities where they're there to, before the empire expanded, it was kind of like their main line of defense. And then from those two cities, you had your staging points to expand northeast and southeast. So again, probably pretty big on like the military culture. Even Tremont, I wrote a little bit about how like some people even see the city more as like a citadel than a city per se. So there would definitely be a big military presence there.
So who is the military there? Like, thanks for the follow, Ree.
What's up?
Like, whose military is it that's there? Is that like remnants of the empire still like strongholded there, or is it like their own personal local like forces?
It would be their own local.
Okay.
So in the history of the empire, it's actually the Duke of Tremont and the Duke of Cardo who betray the last emperor and kill him, and then they fight each other, and that's why the empire totally collapses in fragments. So Tremont is like one of the big, like, they're not the empire per se, but they're one of the ones who could potentially have the strength to restore it.
And are there still competitive and hard feelings between Cardo and Tremont because of this?
Yeah, I would definitely think so, unless we had some change of heart where we're like, no, let's change it. I would definitely still interpret it that way. I think
it'd be fun for players to like to both be affiliated from or like with the area that once was the old empire and still have that rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's another aspect that I never really knew about all this, that it's starting to like come to life for me, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so the one thing, and this is one of the parts I kind of kept unclear because I wasn't sure when we get players necessarily like how we might want to change it up. But I was thinking though that like Tremont and Troy probably stick together. Cardo and Verlion might remain kind of their own things. They may not even be partners. And then again, I think the Leon Perion thing, those two would likely still be sticking together. So you might have as many as 3, 4, maybe even 5 separate kind of like factions who are vying for control of this country still.
Okay.
So there was kind of a power grab then towards the end that made it like...
It's essentially a power grab where nobody actually grabbed the power.
It just backfired.
They just destroyed each other.
It totally backfired. Nobody got what they wanted, and now they're all basically lesser for it.
I'm sure there was all this self-importance in the back of their heads too that was like, while we're squabbling over all of this, the rest of the world is just like, we're done. Like, get out of here. Go home. Like,
and I think
figure it out there.
That's part of the mentality too, that we said this a lot in the beginning, but for everybody who's basically not from there, you might get somebody in Tremont who, if it's the flavor of the week kind of thing, that like they have more power at the moment and they go around, talking about the empire, everyone else in the world would still just look at them and be like, what empire? Like, what are you talking about?
They're living in the past. Yeah.
In 6 months, somebody else is going to curb stomp your army, and then it's just going to be the same thing over and over again.
That's cool.
So, but yeah, so that's the state of the country, and I think that's where like if players came in and were really like, hey, like we have this idea, let's roll with it. We definitely could, because when we talk about it, the empire is like kind of this separate entity, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. This is definitely more the setup for just like you know,
like the states that still exist.
Yeah, like the smaller scale conflict, and like if you were just a normal person there, like this is the stuff that would be affecting you.
Because I mean, I would assume that there might even be people that could live here that are so over, like they may think like, man, the concept of the empire really tore this land apart, and I'm like done with it. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there might be people that aren't, you know, about restoring it. They might just be like, hey, life goes on. Like we gotta.
Sort of jaded about it.
Yeah. So I mean, that really too would be a testament to how torn it is with like strife and fighting, because it's like it affected just like the rest of the known world. Like it affected everybody so differently that just because you're from here, it wouldn't necessarily be this like forced thing that you'd be like, once again, like you might be like, this is terrible, you know. But I mean, that's the agency that you would have making someone from this region.
I would love to play like a character that's from like Cardo or Tremont that's like all like they still have this completely and totally off their ass idea of like the glorious empire they're a part of. But like while there's actually like operations of people that are trying to make that happen, they just have no idea. Like
they're just so disconnected from the other side of it.
That'd be really fun.
That'd be tight for sure.
So cool. So yeah, like I like getting that info out there so that if people start getting a feel for something, they can kind of latch onto it and you know, be about it and help us, you know, like just make that stuff happen. Do we know where Marcel is specifically from? I won't say who's playing Marcel because I don't know if they're ready.
Marcel is from Verlion.
Yeah.
He's from that southern city.
Cool. So, I mean,
which I think we established too for the lore. There's going to be like a big like university there, and it's going to be a major center of like education in culture, and should be a cool little piece of the story to flesh out.
And you know, speaking of like things that we didn't know, I think it was kind of like an overall mystery, at least even for me, which I guess I should have asked, but for me and people that have asked questions to me about it, like what happened with that, it's cool to see that it was like it ate itself alive.
Yeah, like that was entirely the idea with it.
Yeah, because it's kind of
you
like
had all this power, then the power ruined you.
Well, the power, and then also if they're so willingly to go across and dominate and just oppress all these people, you know, thinking about the type of person that would do that, I feel like it would be very easy for someone to turn towards their neighbor or another city and be like, they're not true empire. Like, why don't we take it for ourselves? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that mentality betrayed itself, like we said. But so that's cool, because without getting too much into it, when I wrote my big bio about my character, I had just kind of briefly mentioned like the people maybe kind of saw a little bit like the empire was like starting to leave, and that would be cool if we grouped it up with the timeline, because it's like if they were starting to have strife out of the west, it would be natural, like whatever city they're loyal to or whatever, like they would probably want to head back to be like, you know, my family's getting killed, or like my city is getting sieged, like I can't be way out here in this area. Like it would make sense for them to be like, it's time to go, because like the homeland's kind of getting, you know, having trouble. So like that's pretty cool. That'd be cool.
Do we want to talk about our like idea of how the actual empire as like a organization?
I think we should.
Yeah, I think we should.
So this kind of it came to fruition last night as we were sort of discussing things, and I think we sort of always had an idea that this is going to be, if not like an actual thing, a sort of aspect of how the empire exists. But we kind of have these like exciting ideas for like to the mass public of everywhere, including Lyonnais and everywhere else where the empire once held governance. There is no more empire. It began crumbling from the inside out, and by the time a lot of the remnants that were all over the known world retreated back to Lyonnais, there wasn't much to save, and it sort of just disintegrated back into a bunch of duchies and counties. In reality, small remnants of the empire exist in very much like a shadow organization way.
Like a sleeper state, like they're just kind of holding out.
Which is going to kind of provide a space for players to do sneaky, covert stuff, or just get involved in dark stuff. Because the whole purpose of these people is going to be, clearly we cannot restore the empire by force, so we will have to do it by any other means necessary. And I mean, that could be assassinations, it could be major political moves, it could be all sorts of stuff done in the shadows, and players might not even know that they're about to get involved when they do. But it's another aspect that I not only do I want to bring it in because I think it sounds cool, and I know we all think it sounds cool, but I think it's an aspect that's going to draw people towards doing something that involves them with empire stuff. It might even be something that we sort of provide to people who play characters from Lyonnais, and if they don't really decide to be part of any sort of empire remnant, or if they're just, I'm just a normal person from any of those places, Tremont, you never know if, like, at one of those events, like, some kind of shadowy cloaked figure is going to come and try to slip you a note, or
anyone.
Kinds of other stuff that I don't want to spoil.
Yeah. Yeah, you may be contacted in some means.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say it would probably be more likely if you were maybe a Lyonnais character, but the idea is, like, nobody really, well, first of all, people don't believe that it exists, but they also wouldn't even know where it would physically exist. It could be a form of corruption that, you know, some nobles have somewhere in another part of the known world. Like, it could be anyone. So it's like this shadowy, like, you know, it may not necessarily be like a Sith looking, you know, obvious. It could be someone that you even interacted
it's like the
with.
Illuminati.
Yeah, you could have interacted with them so many events in a row that they have knowledge of something that you don't. And it could influence their decisions. But I think we would want it to be as undetectable as possible.
Yes, it's definitely not something that's going to be, like, out in the open or something that you will easily be able to seek out.
Yeah.
It's not going to be something that we are running stuff for at every single event.
Right.
It's going to be very specific, and it's going to be very secretive. But I want people to get excited about it, so we're telling you about it.
Yeah. We were when we all came to that point last night. We were like, oh. So.
Yeah, once like the conversation kind of turned to, like, what if we did this? We all freaked out, like, collectively. Just because it's like, that's the kind of stuff where it's like, when we talk about, like, this game isn't going to just be about sword fighting. And when people are like, I could tell, I could see and hear visual confusion.
Yeah,
people sometimes
definitely.
when I'm like, the game is going to always be on. And there's going to be events where you never pick up a sword. And they're like, just because so many people have no concept of, like, just playing pretend to be on, like, I'm sword fighting with my friends. And it's like, because there's going to be events where, like, that's the kind of thing that's happening. Like, it could be like we set up, and it's like, oh, it's just like a feast for this random noble's birthday. And they've invited, like, the entire, like, county that the event is set in for that. And it's like, oh, well, you just so happen to be a stranger from somewhere else rolling into town. And it's like, so why wouldn't you just go to do something for the time? And then for all you know, like, some kind of crazy assassination is going to happen, or there's going to be certain people being contacted because of either interests they have or things they might have been overheard saying, or even if the sort of Shadow Empire folk just see them do something and take an interest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's somebody that knows how to talk, or there's somebody that knows how to fight. You know, they seem to have a lot of connections.
Right.
Like, it's gonna be very natural.
Yeah, very like
it's not gonna. Yeah,
seduction.
It's not gonna be.
I was gonna say, who knows if the noble whose birthday it isn't part of this empire ordeal.
Exactly.
Maybe the feast is a cover to get certain people together to organize something else.
Everybody brings a gift, and you don't know, maybe a noble will bring a gift that's like sabotaged. You know what I mean? Like,
my
who
gift
knows?
is poison.
Yeah, like, or
poison.
Something's up for a vote, and someone that seems like they would be very pro one way, they might make a vote that doesn't make sense, and people are like, what is going on? Like, it you know, just like the intrigue of someone behind the scenes influencing the choices they make for some other purpose. Like, who knows? Like, the sky's really the limit with that. So, but I kind of had an idea that I would really like it to be high stakes, like high reward, but also like some other things tied in that may change the course of your character if you don't do what's asked of you. Or, I mean, we could leave it at that, but for people that really like taking chances, or, you know,
Tom really wants to avoid threatening people on air.
Yeah, well, no, it's just it would be like anything that you could actually think of as a real life, you know, entity. It would be very secretive, and like, I don't know, you don't want to upset that.
We've talked before, just to make Tom's point as clear as possible. We've talked before about how, like, we're not going to tell you can't play a character that's like a deranged, like, stabby McBandit guy. But you have to accept the consequences that might come with that. Now, players 99% of the time are going to have complete and total agency over whether or not their character dies. Whether you get stabbed in an alley, whether you get poisoned in a tavern, whether you get maimed on the battlefield. Your character, as they exist, does not die. They might be injured, but only if you are choosing and accepting, like, and this is where they die.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be times where you even put up your character's life, like, on the line for, like, a duel or in a tournament, just because it makes the story that much more exciting. So if you are like a wacky criminal, you know, getting arrested all the time, getting caught doing stuff all the time, you're only going to get away with so much before we kind of decide, like, your character's out of hand. You either need to start, like, hiding in the woods while you're playing them, or we're going to, like, execute your character pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
In that same vein,
brutal.
If you start getting involved with these dark things and people start finding out, it might become dire to either silence the people that are finding out before it becomes far too known, or you're going to have to accept consequences of people finding out your character is up to something.
Or like you've told someone that you were part of it.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. Like,
if they're not trustworthy.
If the higher ups of this organization find out that you've been leaking information, it will be,
there's consequences.
100% in their hands to take you out.
Yeah, and that's something, you know, there's always going to be an opportunity if you choose to get involved or not. I mean, more than likely, we're going to have a chat with you, and you're going to definitely have an ability to consent to that outcome, or else you probably shouldn't play that storyline for yourself.
We don't want to catch anybody like in a situation they don't think they signed up for.
Right. But if you're a thrill seeker and you like playing, you know, a secretly corrupt person, and we even kind of talked about it maybe having benefits, like say you know, we haven't touched that much on it, but if you know, with the money system that we've kind of been tossing around, if you start out as like a lower, I don't want to say lower class, but like not a rich person, maybe like you're, you know, down on your luck or whatever you build for your character, and you.
It's just low. There's just 3 tiers. There's low wealth, middle wealth, and high wealth.
So if you're a low wealth character, but you would be excited to maybe have an arc that you you rise in status and money, there would be big risk, but you would think there would also be big reward. Otherwise, it might be kind of a slow path, although it's possible to rise up. That could be an incentive for someone, and that would be an incentive for someone in real life that is, wants to make money. And I mean, that's why we have like criminals and stuff and like different stuff like that. So,
I think about turning to organized crime every day.
But that's me. Like that would be a type of character you could play. It may not be it just because you want to. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe they won't contact you. I don't know. We have to talk about that more in depth. But I don't know. I think that's cool new development that we kind of like popped on last night.
Well, the thing I was saying.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying the thing that I like about it is I feel like it adds to the game a genuine sense of mystery and things that are happening. Because I think the one thing that you see sometimes struggle in LARPs, or I guess you can even say like D&D, if it's maybe like a DM who isn't like super into this kind of stuff, it can be hard to write like secrecy and like mysteries for people to uncover. And I feel like for us, like this is the path to mystery. Like if we have players who want to be enticed by the idea of like shadowy happenings and like, I mean, it sounds like a gag, but if you want your character to be like medieval PI, it's like, here's your chance to try and like sit around and observe people and see what's going on. And can you like put the pieces together? And like we said, like, if you do that, like you might be in danger.
Yeah.
Or it might open up things to happen. Or maybe the organization is like, hey, you got talent. How about you come to our side,
Right. To most people who are playing their character and talking to other people who are playing in character, when you guys talk about the Empire, it's going to be like, oh yeah, that Empire thing that, that's done and over with. Not our problem anymore, not anyone's problem anymore. And that's why if anybody was ever talking about the Empire in a public space in a way where they take it very seriously, like you kind of get like scoffed, or laughed at. But those are the kind of things where like we kind of have to expect people to, as players, understand that this stuff might be happening, but as characters, unless you're involved with it, like to you, this shit doesn't happen unless. And that's why we're talking about we're going to be very secretive about it, and it's not going to be happening a lot because we want it to be something that's not out in the open. So we are going to be expecting people to sort of like not metagame and be like, I know what's happening, like, because if your character hasn't seen it happening and hasn't been spoken to about it and hasn't been in contact with people and literally hasn't witnessed it, they have no idea this shit's happening.
Yeah.
But that's also why it's like, if we find out you're spreading the word, once we get you involved, like we're gonna either like if it's only at a certain point, we're just gonna completely cut ties and go cold on you, and you're just gonna sound crazy to all your friends you try to tell about it. Or if you spill the beans way too much, we're probably gonna have to do something to your character. Probably gonna have to cut their tongue out or something. You can't talk.
You play on mute the rest of the game.
we could have even planted NPCs or given secret quests to people to listen to see if anyone's talking about it. So how about that? You know what I mean? Like you can't like, oh man, I saw this and like you would. I mean, one, the social repercussions were like you'd be worried, like Mike said, for people being like, what are you talking about? So like socially, you would kind of seem behind the times and like people would be like, what? But also, like, if it really was something secretive that you were afraid of, you wouldn't be, like, blabbing, hey, everybody, because, like, who knows who's listening type of thing. But, yeah, that was just a cool little idea that we had.
I like my favorite thing about it is that it starts to give some concrete foundation to how the Empire exists currently in the game. And that's what I like about it, is that I know, like, in my head, I can see where to put it.
Right.
And I can see what they're doing and how they're doing it. So now it's like, and even with Lyonnaise and understanding what it is and how people there feel about everything, I'm like, it's concrete now.
I get it now, yeah.
We just need people to sort of like fill it up and like be it. And even if they don't, we'll just have people already involved have secondary characters that are from there. Like that's already happening. So yeah, Empire. It's gonna be cool.
It's a thing.
And it's not something that we have like plans for where it's gonna go. You know, like this could be like the sort of season 1 like super tiny subplot that like if people figure it out and it just gets shut out and the people involved just get eliminated, it's like, oh, I guess maybe that's not a thing anymore.
Well, yeah,
at the end of it until it rises again.
Yeah, and the whole idea is
it's later. Bring it back.
It's so subtle. It's so
never
subtle.
Gone.
Yeah, it's so subtle and unseen. Like even
like
if
a Hydra.
People might be able to like get it out of their region or out of their city for a short time, but it's like you can't. How do you root that out? How do you find where every little remnant
before it comes back?
See,
yeah, it'll reorganize.
That's what would be fun, is playing the character who is like a Shadow Empire, like I'm trying to think of like a Shadow Empire sort of like boss person, like somebody that's kind of like higher ranked, and some sort of like somebody gets involved with like in the back of their mind like, I want to stop this from happening. And then playing out like if and when they succeed, like before they like kill that character that's playing the Empire guy, he's like, don't you know that once you kill me there'll just be another? Like this never ends.
Spill some cryptic like like it's the Empire's an idea and like you can't kill an idea.
You can't kill ideas.
It's not flesh and
You
blood.
could kill me, but yeah.
You're a fool.
Do you want to work into then we can transition to Ingvar and how that affects?
Yes.
Or okay.
So coincidentally, it's very cool that we came up with this because it makes the idea we had for Ingvar's stuff make so much more sense. Because the idea we had for Ingvar was that there's sort of these remnant leftover people specifically in Roznagov, which is like the ruling oblast of Obravoska. And I don't know what the nature of it is. Is it people don't really realize it, or people just don't know? Like,
well, it's like we said, like Empire's gone, and in our experience, even though there was a big clash with our culture, they really brought, at least temporarily, a lot of industry, and like Roznagov's big because of them, kind of, and like it really didn't bring much turmoil other than the battle up in the pass. So when they physically left, I want to assume that people were just like everybody else, like, oh, that's over. Like, that sucked, but we finally got them out of here. And, like, I don't know if people would immediately start, like, sniffing around, like, are you one of them? You know what I mean? Because
right.
These were all people that openly were recognized as just people of the region.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if especially, like, we just talked about, like, if the Empire can exist now in such a secretive way to where it would be very hard to find them out, then how would anyone really even know
right,
that they're still
even
here?
Like start to think that that's like the connection these people
Yes.
still have. So I mean, to the general public, these are just people who were in charge already.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, they are making decisions and pushing things in certain directions, not for the benefit of Roznagov or even Obravoska, but for
pretty much themselves, but also maybe themselves. Empire affairs, but we wouldn't know.
They're benefactors.
Yeah, it mostly looks selfish, which is like the way I think it makes sense to play it is that the way Ingvar sees it is that it's like self-serving.
Right.
And he probably would see them as like these leftover people, like they're not even from here, or like they're children of like people that aren't even from here.
Mm-hmm.
And they aren't doing anything for us, they're doing things for themselves. And as he dug deeper into it, he might find that there's even these like passions for an old empire with these people.
I mean, even at the basis of what Ingvar went through, they're definitely like war profiteering. So like the conflict that happened up north was for resources. So I think there's enough evidence that he would be like, you put all these people at risk for this battle, that it was obviously for resources. Like I was there, like I saw, I had friends that died, like both sides were terrorized by this. And here you are like a fat cat, like getting all this money. And like, I mean, you could easily, like that would be enough evidence there to be like, I have a problem with you. Like, why'd this even happen? Like the region up north was left in kind of like ruin. Like no one's doing good up there. You know what I mean? And like, so maybe that would be like the beginnings of why you would start looking into it. What you end up finding, I mean, we could still write, but like, there would be enough there for someone that's just totally oblivious to any empire involvement.
Right.
Because really, the only evidence we have that was fishy, it was the treaty that was signed. It was very unrecognizable of the region. So maybe you could tie it to that and like, why did that even happen? And like, go from there.
So with the idea that the remaining sect of people loyal to this old empire are kind of operating in the shadows, biding their time to try and regain what they had, we can work that into this where Ingvar either figures out that there's people that are either part of that or connected to the people that are part of that in Rosnagov, or he's just getting too close. And because he's getting too close, some of the nobility that is kind of in on that comes to take him out, and when he defends himself, they die. But to the public, it's seen as Ingvar like taking people out, and he just looks crazy. And that's why Ingvar has to go.
Well, in the connection too, it's like you are. I mean, we had chatted about like you represent, or you're like some rank where you're representative of your cultural group.
Right.
So, and you were a noble at the time, so you would have been connected enough.
Like they were the locals of Rosnagov. They were like the major culture there until the empire sort of developed.
Kind of like reshaped the region in that area.
Right. And a lot of my culture was kind of erased, and we were like the one family that was sort of brought in and like brought up to nobility in order to represent those people. And my family always sort of like forsook it and kind of like ironically like took part in it, just so that it's like we need to have some sort of say in this, but almost all of it's done in spite. Like, it just shouldn't be this way anyway. So there's always been this tumultuous like
family mission to be like, you don't belong here.
Right.
Like, why is this here?
We were fine before.
Yeah.
Like you see all this prosper because of the way you've created this economy, but they're like the suffering that you think we had before you came here just was not a reality.
Yeah, and that being in that battle could have really been the start. Because I mean, if you're literally going to be pulling Yuri's body out of the, pulling him out of a pile of bodies, like I just want to like really send it home that it was probably a super just horrific, murderous battle.
It's when it clicks for both of us.
Yeah. So to be like, this would never have happened. In like
why
the
are
old
we
way.
doing this?
Yeah. So there's a lot of events and enough evidence for someone that would have had a direct connection. Even your family was in opposition of the treaty being signed to begin with. You would have had a lot of elders in your family in your ear about it. And then you have this personal experience to where you would have really doubled down and been like, I got to get down to the bottom of this. Like, it's my generation now. I need to do what I can. I'm connected. I have some influence. You have the actual power to use to make a difference.
Right.
I think that's sweet.
Yeah, but I became a problem. I started sniffing around too much, and they tried to take me out.
I don't know.
They didn't succeed, but I didn't look good.
That scene like plays out in my head in just a very vague, like you just sitting there like talking to somebody that you've known for so long, thinking like they're gonna be like really intrigued about what you have to say, and then just this look of like, almost like they switch their face, like this look of like, you've gotten too close, and then you being like, God damn it! And like,
I was gonna say, like, you're just saying something like, hey, did you hear that? And then like you say whatever, and they're just like, you
see like the guards
like,
starting to move forward.
Yeah.
And you and Milos are like, like killing guys and getting like semi-wounded and like,
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So, like, that's something I would like to try to shoot, like at that fort in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
That would be really cool. We have to bring our own table to flip because they probably wouldn't want us flipping any of their tables.
No. And we could do a lot of that shaky camera thing where it's like people yelling and like you see someone's arm swinging a sword and like, so we don't have to like have a bunch of people in the room and I mean, and all that just ties so together with the beginning. Like this would all happen like right before day one of the game, pretty much.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like fresh off of, this is like the most current event, at least in this region that we have written, to even where, stuff that goes on with Oleska, he would want to try to find Ingvar as quick as possible, which kind of causes us to get in a temporary scuffle. And
so then explain the motivation with that, because isn't it that the two guys that come after me are involved in?
Yes. So in the big expanse of the Empire, which we've kind of generally talked about, is they're very, like any empire, they're trying to expand, but being an empire, their technology is, we could say, a bit more advanced or a bit more like widespread, and that's like firearms, gunpowder, anything that's like war based, because they're really like oppressing everyone as they expand. So they kind of have their moment in, well, they have a lot of moments in Kurzenstrad, but there's things there that they kind of set up shop with, and then when they expand east, they're heading towards the resources up in the Chernogora, which are very heavy in, we could just say, like coal or whatever other resources they would need to continue their production of gunpowder for cannons, firearms, because you would think that would really make a huge difference in battle as it did in real life. So then my Oleska has a short time in Kurzenstrad, in the region where that settlement kind of was formed, which would be the county of Nurnik in the east, which would make the most sense because that's the first place that I would hit. But he goes out there as a young man, works for them to defend against the conflicts they're having, to protect the interests, comes back home, obviously goes through the Chernogora fight and everything. But so then at that point, as Oleska starts to be an older man, being in close proximity with these things, even just by chance, gives him an interest in the mining, in the coal, in the gunpowder production, because it's a very new, semi-new industry, very obviously lucrative because he sees it everywhere. And we want to write it in, which now would make sense if the person that tries to arrest Ingvar is either Empire themselves or connected with the Empire. They would be kind of...
They could even be somebody that's just benefiting so much from it that they don't want anybody messing around.
Maybe even that they're a made-up character that they're getting contacted by this shadowy thing, and they're like... You know what I mean? Like, they may not even know what they're involved in anymore, but they know that there's someone that's helping them influence what they're doing. But Oleska wanting to get into it, you kind of have these older families or these entities that are kind of controlling the market in Obervoska. So right in this event, as this game starts, Ingvar goes in there. He reveals his evidence. They try to attack him. Let's say he kills one or two nobles and like guards and stuff. Well, the people that he kills are direct important figures in this industry. I won't say that they're the only ones, but they're important people in the industry that after it happens and like Oleska gets word that those people were killed, even though that's something he would never do himself because he's a noble, he's immediately thinking, oh my gosh, like everyone's going to think it was me, or that like I orchestrated this because people know that I'm trying to, like, we could even write
like pretty soon after you like might have had some kind of conversation,
like a meeting, and they're like it's never going to happen for you.
They like denied you.
It's like too timely that they die right after.
Yeah, so he's like, oh.
Yeah.
So, and Oleska is kind of like this established, because we're using currently we're using real ages. So I mean, I'm like almost 9 or 10 years older than these guys. So I'm kind of making him a little bit more like he has experience. But he just takes a small band of his dudes to try to track down where Ingvar escaped to, because one, I mean, he's got questions as of like, why did you do that? Like, that's what happened, because he's not privy to any of this.
Right.
Because, I mean, we could even write in later, like, Oleska's kind of like unknowingly, things out in the West, things up in Chernogora, like, he could have been unknowingly used as a pawn to carry out plots that he thought were just, things to protect Obervoska or things for him to make money, and he's benefited off it. But so when he finds Ingvar doesn't know why he's there, why he showed up, and he's like finds him. So I'm sure there's going to be like a kind of a scuffle there. But Oleska didn't really go there for a fight, but because you attack him, they try to defend themselves. That's why I don't want to make it too much like we just totally obliterated everybody, because I want to be like, Oleska would be like, stop. Like, stop fighting, tend to these wounds, because he just wants to talk to you. I don't want it to be this totally like decimation or like he's coming to punish you. He's trying to find you to be like, why? Like, who hired you? Like, why would you do that?
It could be like me and Milos are like heading south, and like we see like a regiment of guys coming up behind, and we try to hide, and like we just assume the worst. Like,
yeah, because
people coming to kill us.
You would be very paranoid.
We
at
try
that
to
point,
like ambush them once they caught up, and we're like fighting your guys, and then you like after like 30 seconds of scuffle, you're like, cut it the fuck out.
Yeah, like I'm to my men, I'm like, stop fighting. And then we can have that interrogation scene where I'm trying to really find out why you did it. I don't know if you would feel comfortable to tell me all the details, and you would probably know how crazy it sounds, but also Oleska would have his own motivations to be like, everyone's going to think that I'm involved no matter what you or I even say. And I can't even be the one to bring you in, because that's just too convenient to like throw everybody off my trail that would suspect me. So you literally got to go. Like, you got to go for yourself, and you got to go for me, which I don't even know how much of that will be in the dialogue or how much Oleska would even be willing to share with you with that. 'Cause then you could leverage on him with that. But, I think it would be a general consensus to be like, I'm not going to take you in. Even if you say you share a little bit of that with me, we could either make it that he believes you, or it's something that he has to think about, but it's enough for him to be like, and then send you on your way out to the west.
It could be too, like, I think we talked about this before too. So I feel like if I was already heading south, you probably wouldn't bother coming to grab me real quick. But what if I was still kind of hanging out on the outskirts with me thinking like, this is a problem and I'm going to try to take care of it. And that's, you find me and you're like, you got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever problem you think is happening here, like, you're a problem for me.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say the flight after the battle or whatever is that I feel like, at least from what I understand of Ingvar's character so far, is I would think when that happens, his first instinct is to like stick around and be like, oh my god, like I have to do something about this now. Not like, oh, this happened, well, I'm gonna leave and go.
Right.
Well, especially because he has such allegiance to the region, he wouldn't be like, bye everybody.
Oleska should convince him.
I was gonna say, I like that Oleska's like, hey, for both you and me, you need to leave, and then that's what sets Ingvar on his journey.
He's gonna be like,
to go west.
I believe you, but in his head he's gonna be like, what is going on?
He's like,
what is?
Okay, crazy.
Because he could be thinking like, someone else in the government hired you to kill my rivals to pin it on me, so then I go to jail so they can get rid of me. Like, he also doesn't know what plot is going on.
You could be like, are you trying to frame me?
Yeah, like, what are you doing? Yeah, like, it's just too much of a coincidence. It would be cool if I nabbed you somewhere south of Rosnagov but near Borvalka, because that's another thing too. Like, you wouldn't have been in there with every single person you have, which I feel like me, you would have some kind of entourage. So maybe you're running back to your like mini estate to get guards to go back, or because you would have to have a home somewhere outside of Rosnikov, unless you just want to live there. You know what I mean? Like, you'd have a stash of men somewhere, or like people that you could go talk to.
Yeah, I probably have like a keep or something somewhere.
Because mine's out in Rodnoy somewhere, but because that's where my dad's from. So that's cool. I mean, that feels real stable to me. I like the way that's headed. And then I could be like, go to Nurnik.
Yeah, go to Nurnik. It's sweet.
Throwing you in the jaws of the lion, like, yeah,
then
go to
you meet
Nurnik.
all these Kurzenstrahd people, and you're like, what did I get myself into?
Well, especially if we end up writing it in that Nurnik was kind of like the first, like they were part of the development from the Empire in Kurzenstrahd that I inadvertently didn't know that I was working for. If we write that in, but there's a connection there, I could be sending you right into danger there, because who knows what residue is actually there still, because they're kind of like the big bad of the region, right?
Of completely like several repeated and segmented and unintentional things happening that just constantly are driving a wedge between Ingvar and Aleska being able to trust each other.
But I do want to have a definitive moment where we both look at each other and realize, like, this is very real.
But we have to build to that. Like,
yeah,
there has to be all this like he sent me here and this sucks. And even before that, you're like, he just killed these guys and I look like I wanted those guys dead. So
yeah,
there's like this constant back and forth of like, we keep thinking like,
there's this confusion, of we don't know
if at some point it becomes real, you know.
Yeah,
that'll be sweet.
Yeah,
I'm feeling great about all that.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
I was gonna say an idea I had too, that I think you can use for plot convenience if you need it, as you're recruiting more people to the faction, and I mean like actual players, or in the case of like Yuri, like who's my secondary character, something you could do too is that in your escape and then being told to leave, that maybe your people were scattered. And so part of it too is it's like a regrouping and people are going to slowly trickle back into your service.
Because Yuri would be up in Chernograd, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I might even have been on my way to Chernograd to like go grab Yuri.
And then Yuri's like, he never showed up. And then he like goes looking for you.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking too with that is it's like Yuri, you know, for me, because I have to play Dimitri still, like I may not be Yuri till we're like 3 or 4 events in. So if you even wanted to do something where it's like, hey, we need kind of like a plot development of like somebody heard something or saw something, it could even be like, you know, Yuri passes through Rosnagov looking for you, and of course you're not there. And maybe he like mentions you, and then like kind of gets sucked into the same shit, and then it's like, oh god, like I gotta get there. And then, you know, when Yuri shows up, he can be like, hey, this thing, and then like that's, you know, relevant to the event or whatever. You know, but
what's the story with Aleska and Nurnik again?
Okay, so while you are all children and your 7-year-old, like when you're in your
babies,
while you were all the babies,
while you were the babies, and I wasn't coming to see you. What's up, Josh?
I hope you're watching, Josh.
So when Oleska was, and I have the timeline somewhere, but when Oleska was basically young but above 18, when there was inactivity in the region, out in the west during like the Warring States or the Warring Counties era in Kurzenstrahd, which it wasn't even called Kurzenstrahd then because it had fallen, and that's part of like the whole Dimitri thing and all, and anyone that's really involved, but they were all very young then, so that was even subplot to before they even grow up. During that Warring States era, the county of Nurnik, so then they are the kind of capital of gunpowder, handgun, all that stuff production. So they have the money. They're the most eastern part of the region. So I don't know how maybe that they were hired, but we could, you know, it's all too coincidental. Their in a very Empire possible region of interest, maybe they sent word to Rosnagov, like, we need help to help defend the interests here, and maybe that opportunity, because of nobility or whatever, we would have had the first pick to go out and like earn some money, do some service. Maybe my dad was like, you should go out there and earn some experience and see the world, and because he lived a very homely life in Rodnoy, basically. And because in my bio, which no one else has read but maybe me, he wanted to raise me to have a different life than he had. So I could see him encouraging me, like, yeah, go out there. This is a great opportunity. Go earn some life experience. So I go out there for 5 years. I serve. Thankfully I survive. I earn some money. I learn some things about the industry, because they would have, whether I was a guard there, we were actually fighting on the lines, I don't know yet. But I serve there and I come back with some wealth, with some experience. So then by the time the Chernogora Pass happens, like, I'm more of a officer because of my experience. And then after that, that's when I'm knighted and I become like actual nobility, recognized for me.
What happens there that would make it be problematic when I get there?
Well, we can write that in, but that's the possible connection. If I am sent out there because Empire entities send word to the Empire entities in Rosnagov, I go out there as a pawn of theirs to help them. But at this point, you have killed people that were in their network. So when I send you out there, I'm thinking I'm sending you out there to old friends that would take care of me.
And you never knew those friends.
And I never knew. So when you get out there, they would probably, not right away, because I want to think that there was haste.
Yeah, like, the crowning moment of, like, our first, like, plot is when neither of us actually see, like, Empire people until we are together. And it's like a moment where, like, I'm trying to convince you that this is real, and you've, like, sent me right into it. After I tried, like, I tried to stop it at home, and you sent me away right back into it. And then finally you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And that's when, like, we get, like, jumped by Empire dudes.
Yeah. And then we have a cool moment where we're, like, going back to back, like, ugh, and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
and that's when the trust gets established.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something to consider too for future story, or whatever we can work in the background too, is that good old Mr. Count Wilhelm Tasser von Nernick is Dimitri's arch nemesis. So
that's what I was thinking.
I don't know where or when Dimitri's gonna fit into this Empire mystery puzzle. Because I can never say in the beginning he's not in on it. He has no idea. He's somebody who's totally he's everybody else in the game, scoffing at it, no big deal. But that guy, just because of local conflict, is like kind of like the final boss for him. So that's something too, where even if you discovered things and informed Dimitri, like that's how you could even form a partnership there, or depending on how it evolves, just what happens. I don't know. I just feel like that is a plot point that can give us things to do in Kurzenstrad between like Ostenburg and Druzhina.
Mm-hmm.
Because now there's this thing in the middle that, for different reasons, but we're all kind of like honing in on this thing. Could be interesting.
Yeah, it could either be common ground to work together, or common ground to you hate us.
Mm-hmm.
Juicy.
And like, hey, you've been hanging out in Nernick this whole time. I hate those guys.
Yeah, and as we go west, and let's say that conflict happens, somewhere down the line in the game, you would think instinctively, like, that's cutting us off even more from the east, and we'd have to keep going west, or go even north into Nordenmark, and maybe that's where we can, like, hopefully by then we have some development there. But you would think after a while we'd have to go somewhere and set up like a temporary headquarters or camp, or or have some kind of relationships with people, because then the whole like recruitment phase of what the Druzhina is you're recruiting mercenaries and people from all around to build up that army to hopefully go back one day and actually like liberate, right? I mean, that's like the whole Ingvar storyline. So, and then all the
more into like at the very least rooting out this presence and returning like complete control to the people.
And really not knowing, but maybe assuming that most of the nobility is corrupted by it.
Yeah.
Well, because then you have the game too of trying to figure out who is involved, because you obviously can't just walk in and start murdering everybody. So it's like you got to play the intrigue game, figure out who are the targets.
Even if we don't do actual like little short films, we should at the very least do like some staged photo shoots
with like write-ups.
Yes, and like with
I think I said that last night even.
Yeah, with like writing about like what's happening. And it kind of gives an idea too of like how much like we're gonna put into like scenes that we prepare for like role play during the game.
Even like a event could happen in a very specific place. All of our player base is there. Most of the player base is there. Things unfold there that we could even recap, but we could also say on this day in this other region, this is what happened here. So to give the players a feeling like there's things happening in regions that an event may not be held, that there are current storylines with these characters that you don't know yet, just to create like a living world beyond what the character sees in the immediate event. You see what I'm saying? Because there's the whole Queen storyline and all that stuff that would be happening.
How cheesy would it be to make the way for people to get like easy mode access to what are the plots happening right now, to have like a town crier sort of person that has like printed pamphlets.
That's not cheesy.
The old medieval newspapers.
Out like, in the capital. Because there would be messengers. There would be information highways of people trying to like.
It would be a little anachronistic because it's very like 1700s, 1800s to have like a boy ringing a bell, handing out like pamphlets with news.
Hey, that's where though we're fantasy.
That's why we're a fantasy.
Yeah,
I think it would be.
We can do it.
Yeah, and even if we don't get anybody that wants to do it, we could be handing them out to people when they check in,
or even like,
yeah, check-in actually could be a great opportunity to do that.
It wouldn't look out of place for them to be like walking around with it or like reading it in the tavern. Like it would be like something we get printed up like on like.
Let's make up a fake like newspaper.
Pretty much, yeah.
With like fake columnists that read stuff, but it'd be cool
too. The Daily Imperial.
Dude, people who are vending at the event could like pay for ad space in it.
Yeah,
that'd actually be really cool.
It would be cool too to like we could if we didn't do that or if we wanted to mix it up, we could even have a NPC character dressed like a merchant, but it's kind of bloody. Be like, man, we got attacked on the highway, and like this is something that I heard or. You know what I mean? Like we could create a scene where like someone's like there's a commotion and people be like, what's going on? And then through word of mouth, we could give details and hope that the players remember what the person said to like spread rumors or spread, but I love that.
Basically, if you want to be a medieval journalist, this is the game for
you. There's going to be
if
professions.
You ever had an interest in journalism. If you ever wanted to LARP as a journalist, Wild Sage is a good point too. We could be doing like the news boards or like the quest boards and stuff.
Yeah.
We definitely, even if we were handing them out to people or having somebody passing them out like every morning, we would definitely be nailing a bunch to a board somewhere so that if people wanted to, they could just grab one or read one right there.
Yeah, take it and go kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, like I also still really want to do like that's another thing too about like people who want to play like scoundrel criminal characters. Like once you do enough crimes, like we're probably going to take a picture of you and make a wanted poster.
Or find someone that can really do good drawing and kind of like do it,
And it's going to be something that like anybody who's even somebody who's unaffiliated doesn't know shit about what's going on, they could look at a board and see a picture and see that they're going to get 100 gold or something if they kill this guy, or if they bring him in alive, maybe get double.
Yeah.
So it's like, and people would probably know if they're going to be like a mark because it's like we'd probably have to have a conversation with like, hey, like. You've been like caught or people have witnessed you doing all this shit. So like you're going to have a wanted poster at the next event that you're at.
Yeah.
So,
Cuz I got to think that there's going to be specific cuz we're going to be working with everybody all the time for story. So when someone comes up to us with this idea of like, I want to be this crook character, we might be able even to handcraft personal quests for those people. And if they fail a certain amount of quests in a row, like a failed heist or there was a witness or anything like that, that's where it's like, if we worked in a merit system, like you failed like 4 quests in a row, meaning you're getting more and more exposed. So at this level, then photos are going to start popping up. And again, if we do tie in the life of crime, like your character can be caught and killed.
Right.
You know,
even if it's not like the super systemic, like, oh, like once you've like blown it on this many heists,
sure,
like you get a wanted poster. It could literally just be like, we set up one thing at a time, and it can always go a couple different ways.
Right.
And we're just always ready to react accordingly. So it's like, let's say like some Vinderberg folk are doing some kind of like sketchy Batman henchman guy stuff where they're like just moving some contraband, and it's like, oh, well, if you get caught, like that stuff's probably going to go missing and you might get away, but if people get a good look at you, they might know who you were. Like it doesn't have to be necessarily super like, we're going to set up these crook things for you to do.
We could have
a
full event around a trial of where people can sit and be an audience, like this man
judicial events. That's where it's at.
From the treasury.
Fun. What would be really fun is if we actually got some like 50-something-year-old dude that was like really into it,
like a judge,
being like that'd be so.
In all
that's
my
what I'm
years,
looking for. I'm like, I need to find more of like super enthusiastic old person LARPers.
They got to be out there.
So yeah, we have a target audience we got to start looking at.
I just need more of those people because it's gonna be really funny when like we're trying to do all this stuff and it's like everybody here is like under the age of 40, and it's blowing my mind.
Don't you know most people in Vassal die of old age at like 45? So there's just
no. Let's get better.
Sorry, Tom. Your days are numbered.
It just turns into the plot line of Midsummer. I had to jump off a cliff onto a rock.
Oh God!
Smash me in the brains. But yeah, this is a productive. I'm glad to see. It's been a pretty smooth path here for ideas.
Yeah, I mean, every time we do this, we end up coming up with something like exciting and cool. I don't know if like, oh, we could have a newspaper boy was exciting as like, what if we had a shadow empire? But we didn't.
I mean,
they're equally
pretty
exciting.
Enthusiastic about it.
I mean, as we create these ideas, which really create possible professions for, like, I mean, I'm sure we're gonna have some people in the game that are like, I'm just a citizen of blank. This is my job, and this is how I kind of want to be involved. Like, we might get like very slice of life people because it isn't a very combat focused, at least not in the forefront type of game. So, I mean, not that we're going to get somebody that wants to just go to an event and like pretend to be a newspaper person the whole event, but like, you know, in some people's already established stories, some people want to have medical backgrounds, some people want to, you know what I mean? And that can really shape like, oh, there's a medical tent because this person, and there could be quests with that. And they're like, oh, I need you to collect this and this and this item from the forest because I need to make this antiseptic for the, I don't know, anything like that. As we really create real
pooping.
What? You need to eat this herb.
I need you to get me this herb.
Yeah, like as we create more of those real professions, and it's actually operating with a function at events. Let's say if that happens, I mean, I don't know what people are into.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too is that it's like when people start hearing what we're talking about and start getting told about Vassal stuff by other people, and if you ever have an idea of like, oh, that'd be cool if I could like go there and do this. Like, you should be immediately messaging one of us and being like, hey, Vassal sounds really cool. I had this idea for, like, playing this kind of character or, like, doing this kind of thing, setting up this kind of faction, developing this sort of area. Like,
yeah.
If that thought ever crosses your mind, you should be contacting one of us and starting to talk about it with us so that we can make it happen.
Yeah, Wild Sage.
We're trying to get people involved. Like, we're very much quality over quantity. But I need more quality people to show up and just be like, I want to get involved, and because I know there's people out there that have cool ideas. I've heard so many people at DAG events and all kinds of other stuff telling me all these cool ideas they have for LARPs.
Mm-hmm. And we welcome that.
Yes, like we're the main focus is providing that space so that all these people that I've heard talk about having all these cool ideas for LARP while we were stuck playing buffer games where role play never ever mattered. Like we're trying to create that space now. So like
bring your rage and your ideas and let's
do it. It's all built up and ready to blow.
Wild Sage says they're 46, so there we go.
All right,
eating the curse of the old age here.
That's older than you.
Yes.
So I hope you guys don't mind. I don't get fired from DruzhinAcast on my first day, but I really gotta go to the bathroom.
Nobody pees here. No,
You're supposed to have this is Amazon, man. Get the
bottle. Say, I could be back in 2 minutes. I don't know how much longer we're going.
Get your bottle.
Go do what you gotta do.
No breaks.
There's no stand-ups allowed.
I also like to ask about my benefits package.
We'll talk about it while you're gone.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Yeah, pull out your company mandated water bottle. Did you see the stuff about how like they created like thousands of fake Twitters of people being like, yeah, I'm a happy Amazon worker. Like, none of that stuff's true.
No.
Oh yeah, like they were using like pictures of like famous influencers and like YouTubers and stuff. Like they weren't even trying. I mean, I'm sure they didn't know, but they were just like literally like Googling like happy white guy and like just
using the
Twitter.
All I've seen is the Jeff Bezos memes. Or there's all these crumpled up water bottles full of pee and like he's holding one.
It's like the other thing too is that I know a lot of that gets focused on Amazon, but like Amazon is not the only company where that's happening.
Right, they're just the tip of the iceberg, the big one that people see. Yeah.
Like you should. I have some stories that I can't say until
Bezos.
A couple months, because I need to collect my severance still.
Sure.
But it's not just Amazon. That's what I'll say. I've witnessed it in several other corporate environments that everybody's overworked and the expectations are way too high and nobody's making enough and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool that people are getting called out, but it sucks that they are absolutely trying to cover it up with like fake social media accounts being like, "Are you kidding me? I love working at Amazon.
It's just the
shit
empire.
In boxes is my fucking goal in life. I want to do
just
this
the empire, dude.
Literally dust. It is the empire. It's exactly how we should probably be taking hints and tips from like.
I mean, there's a lot of parallels. I mean, a lot of the reasons why I created Obervoska the way I did is because I'm like, that's a place I'd want to actually live.
Yeah.
If it doesn't exist in the real world, then I'll make it.
Right. Which, I mean, will make us just naturally more passionate about seeing corruption happen inside of it. You know, like, it'll be pushing us to overcome it, eliminate it. Man, I ate a lot when I was with my my parents at my sister's house, eating in the backyard, and I'm hungry again.
See, you activated your stomach. I'm like slowly shrinking with just this. I'm like warm, and this tunic is warm.
See, like I was very tired when we started, and now I'm like, I could eat again. I got some leftovers I could eat up. How'd it go?
Yeah, how'd you pee?
It went well. I was gonna say, but I stood up and everybody probably saw my jeans and they know I'm a frog now.
We actually got more viewers, so we're gonna kick you off because while you were gone, everything got better. No, I'm just kidding.
I like it better when I'm not here.
We should have. So what else? What else should we try to put on blast? Or maybe we should even talk about getting people involved, even if people wanted to even start talking about their own character stuff on the show, we could start doing that stuff here. Like if people wanted to like hit us up and be like, hey, I'd love to be on the show, and do like people who are already actively helping us develop stuff. I mean, there's people who I know we have very cool conversations with that we could easily be having them here on the show.
Sure.
Not just to like put you on display or put you, in a
on the
spotlight
spot
or anything, but we're trying to get this out there. This is like our sole means right now for getting it out to the public. we kind of understand that we could be like running an Instagram or something, or we could be making some kind of website, but we really don't know what we would be providing there other than like some pictures. But if the day that we actually put together like social media presence, we already have all this shit together. Like that's what I want. I want when shit actually gets like revealed on that level, at a point where people can just look at it and scroll through some shit. I want people to be like, holy crap.
Yeah, I want there to be a lot of literature and just story forming. Yeah.
I want it to look like something that's already been going on for like years. And people are like, I'm ready to jump into that. I want to be a part of that.
I'm excited to create characters that the players will never see, but I can like write history on them, and like I want to create Desmond.
Desmond, finally.
Desmond.
We have to get you a big helmet taco inside of. I want him to be exactly like that, like first dude from Berserk.
So I say, what's his name, Bazuzo or whatever. I'm like, that's Desmond.
It's so funny.
His eyes are like really wide in the holes.
It's so awesome. Developing a Vinderberg character now. I want to review it with Conrad and Reginald before I pass my application in. See, that's another thing that we should do too. There's so much getting developed with Vinderberg.
Yeah.
I would like to start getting out there, so that there might be people out there that want to be these like sketchy, you know, sort of what do you call it? Machiavellian, Borgia sort of like drama stuff. They might want to get into that. So it's like, let's get, you know, Conrad and Reginald on here to start talking about that stuff and putting it out there so people can get into it if they want to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, purely from the side too of like, you know, like how you were feeling, Mike, where it's like you knew that there was some information that maybe like me and Rob were tossing back and forth, or I mean, there was stuff that I even today I learned about that I didn't know about the Empire, but like I'm interested to know about, you know, what Conrad's doing. I'm interested to know in what, you know, Reginald and all those guys are. I don't know anything. You know what I mean? So it's like I would love to know, and that's also part of the movement we're trying to do in the Discord. Is like I'm not trying to put anybody under pressure to either do or go. I'm more or less like I want you to be motivated because I want to see more content, and if I can help in any way to help you develop it or whatever. I mean, it gets to the point where like I can talk about myself all day, but like. That's after a while that's going to get old for me. Like I want to hear about other stories, or even like I can't collaborate with you or someone else can't collaborate with you if we're not all talking and like, it's growing together.
Like, we just made connections between the Obervoska Empire issue to Nernick and the Kurzenstrad, who Kurzenstrad not even being super aware of what's happening. Suddenly there's a path and a connection there that could easily be forged just for the sake of having something to do and having a plot to move with. I want to start talking to them about this stuff so that we can start discovering those little points and connections with them too, just so that we can have some natural things and reasons to interact. Because I would hate if like they develop all their really cool stuff on their own and we develop all ours over here, and then once we have an event, it's just us doing our own things, like completely separate. I'm not saying everything has to be everybody's game. Not everything has to be everybody's plot. Not everything has to involve everybody, because that's not how the real world works anyways. But on the chance that there's something cool there that people can get involved in, or, you know, different things, like, could be sweet.
Or even like, as we develop, like, okay, Oleska was out in the West in this city, and he was potentially fighting against your older brothers or your dads. Would you know of me? And like, let's develop that. Because then if I ever see you at an event, now we kind of can understand the beginnings of our dynamic. If you would like spit at my feet, or I don't know. That's the big thing, is I don't know. So like, we're doing this to be social. We're doing this to role play, and we need those connections to role play.
So like, that's why I remember being like, oh, so that's going to be dramatic. Like when we kind of hammered out the details of me getting sent to Nernick by you, because I feel like even though Dimitri would have been very young when it happened, if he is a studied and educated lord, and he knows his history of his family and where he's from, he might recognize your name as like you were one of like the Easterners that Nernick brought in when they were trying to, depose us. So I mean, he might even make that connection, not knowing that you were there while he was a little boy, but he'd probably be educated being in the position he's in. He would know.
And I'll be like,
which
you rose to the power you could because I killed all the strong guys before you grew up. I killed them all when I was young.
The path for you.
Yeah, like I loosened the jar for you, my boy. Who knows?
Your child safety lock.
Yeah, who knows?
No, but that's exciting to me too because you think again. I mean, what Mike said is incredibly valid. Like, not everything is for everyone.
Sure.
I think that's something that people need to understand, because I think a lot of people, like for other LARPs I've been to, there are a lot of people who go and that's what they expect. Like, everything is for everyone, and I don't think this is that. But every event is going to need an overarching thing happening, and right now with the groups that we have, like we need those plot points, or at least those little bits of connection that we can pull on to put something together that, whether or not people get super involved, they have reason to interact with it if they want to.
Yeah. Even the basic synopsis of like these Eastern characters are here because, or like during this time there is a festival here and this affects everyone. Or, I mean, we don't even have to ever talk. Our characters don't, but I will be around and you'll, as a player, know why. And it'll just give you things to like pivot off of if you want to try to role play on the spot, or you want to, or you see someone that like, that guy looks rich, I'm gonna go see if he needs me to do anything, or who knows what will come up with quest wise. But
you look rich.
Marcel is here.
Do you join?
It says Marcel is
here.
Dawn
is delayed.
But in the night I am dressed in black with a sword. What are you talking about? I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
He's talking about the baby.
Don't.
The baby's here. We've come to see the baby.
Yeah, Josh is gonna head out here when this is done. I don't know when. You're not on the road, are you?
You texting and driving?
Are you trying to make me upset?
Unsafe driving?
Go home.
I don't know if the Druzhina benefits package will cover that.
No, it won't.
Get into an accident.
Really bad guy lines. The most cartoonish of cartoon villains.
Gotta love it.
Where to put that? Well,
Tom,
boys,
you're really digging for something over
what are
there.
you doing?
Well, no, I was checking because Josh might come by to pick up wool that he bought from me. I was gonna
And now
tease.
you don't know where it is.
Yeah.
Now it's gone. Sorry.
Well, stay home, Josh.
You better come all this way. Give me a hug.
Do you guys have anything else you want to yak about or touch on, or what else we got? Plans for next episode? Should we try to pull the Vinderberg guys in?
Yeah,
Get them to talk about stuff.
I think
That
that's
might
a good.
be the next natural step.
Yeah, because if you look at it, like when we released that statement in the Discord about people needing to come up with names and like let's get things working. I mean, that's 2 weeks from now that someone could possibly be on the show. So if someone that's already developed their kit and like a basic story, if things develop for them by then, they'll have something extra to talk about that will be relevant, that we've all, or not all of us, but enough of us have like, contributed to or heard, or you know what I mean?
Right. So I guess to reiterate, people that are on our Discord already, change your display name to your character name and try to get a character app in. If you're struggling to figure out background stuff and where you're from and what you do and why you matter, talk to us. We'll help you develop that. We like doing it. We've been making characters for tabletop RPGs for long enough, and obviously we can't stop talking about our own characters. So it would be fun for us to bring you on the level and get you there. And even if you're struggling to find the enthusiasm for that aspect of the game, that is fine. We really just need people to be baseline motivated. Like just even if at its core it's just because you're from somewhere.
Yeah, and the three of us are freaks, and we'll put in the time to help you develop something.
use the Discord. Like, that's why it's there. And yeah, we've pretty much got a month to get everybody on the level before we kind of start considering, waiting for the actual public.
Yeah, you'll have to wait till it's because this is the developmental thing, so we got to develop.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty good after that. What about you guys?
I'm satisfied.
Good.
Cool.
I'm ready to take my shirt off.
Let's do that post tomorrow in the Discord, and then we can start barking up Vinderberg Street and see if we can get them on the next show.
Tight.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Cool. All right, thank you everybody for tuning in. Happy Easter, everybody. I know it's a holiday. We probably shouldn't have done an episode, but we did anyways because we don't really care. But thank you for everybody that hung out. Wild Sage, thanks for showing up, Josh. Bree, thanks for the follow. Frankie Dash, beginning. Love y'all.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Hey, LARPing.
See you next time.
See ya.